Hello guys, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're watching from. You're welcome to Immigrate with Ammy, and this evening we'll be speaking about the Schengen Visa. I know that, this is a very, very common type of visa for people that visit Europe. And the thing is, the visa is meant for people who want to come to the Schengen countries, maybe for tourism, for visit, maybe for a short business trip, or maybe they want to attend like a short conference or seminar. So most of the time, this is the appropriate type of visa that allows you to enter these Schengen countries for these purposes that I already mentioned. And to be honest with you, for people that have, the personal income requirement, or, who are employed and have the financial means, it's a very, very straightforward process. They can apply for the visa and then, show all the documents, including the means of subsistence, and they can, directly get that visa. However, we have other people in some categories who might also want to, get the Schengen visa for one reason or the other. And I'm speaking about, for example, people who are currently unemployed, or people who have irregular income, or people who have insufficient income for them to use for the purpose of the trip. So the question we are going to be answering is, for these people in these categories, how can they successfully apply for the Schengen visa? So this is what will be the focus of this video. So we're going to be answering two key questions, okay, for these people. And the first question is, how can such people demonstrate sufficient means of subsistence? So they are unemployed, they have irregular income, or they have insufficient income. So how can they demonstrate that they have sufficient means of supporting themselves during the entire period of their trip? Then the second question that we'll be answering in this video is, how can they show deep ties to their home country or to their country of residence, okay, which will eventually, give that confidence to the visa officers to approve your visa, because they know that there is something connecting you to your home country or to the country where you currently reside. So these are the points that we're going to be covering in this video. So to start with, for people that are unemployed, or people that have irregular income, or people who do not have sufficient means of subsistence personally to cover the trip for the Schengen visa, the Article 21 of the Schengen Visa Code, okay, shows that you can actually use a sponsor for your trip. Meaning that if you don't have personal income, someone can be responsible for that trip on your behalf. Okay, so the first thing you have to note is that legally it is allowed for somebody to sponsor your tourist visa or your visit visa to the Schengen country to which you want to apply. Okay, and how can you actually prove that you have this means of subsistence if it's someone else covering the expenses of your trip? The first thing is that you need to submit the sponsor's bank statement at least for the past 6 months. Okay. The second thing is that whoever is your sponsor must also write a convincing sponsorship letter, and it has to be signed by the sponsor, which states that they are going to be covering all of your travel expenses. So your travel, your accommodation, your feeding, and other incidental costs, they have to state in that letter of sponsorship that they will be responsible for that. Okay. Now, the third thing is that your sponsor must also provide their identity proof. So maybe like an ID card or their passport data page, which has to be a certified copy. Okay, so you would need to, if of course you are submitting maybe a photocopy of the passport data page, ensure that it is certified. Maybe you take it to a notary public to notarize it, or maybe you legalize it or something like that. Okay, just to show that it's a true copy of the original ID document. Okay, the next thing is that you must be able to show the degree of relationship between you and your sponsor. All right, and in most cases it's always better if it's someone who is like an immediate family member. So for example, your parent, or maybe if it's a parent who is traveling, maybe one of the children of the parents. Okay, so that degree of relationship must exist, and you must be able to prove that with necessary documents. Okay, because for example, I mean, in most cases, it doesn't sound so true for someone who doesn't have a relationship with you to be responsible for all of your travels, right? So it's always better if it's someone that has a very, very close degree of relationship with you. It's more logical for such people to want to sponsor your trip. Okay? All right. Now, in some cases, all right, the embassies, they are at liberty to demand additional documents from you. Okay, and sometimes imagine that if the person that is that wants to be your sponsor is employed by an organization, they might demand for maybe the person's pay slip for maybe the past 6 months, for example. Even if they don't demand it, I think it's good for you to also submit that if the person is employed. Now, if the person is like an investor, maybe he has, investment, or he has businesses that is bringing in income for him, you should submit like, certificate of, investment for that person, or the company registration certificates, or the business income certificate, just to show, the source of the funds of your sponsor. Okay, it gives more credibility to your application. All right. Now, if your sponsor is someone that is living in Europe already, okay, you might also need to submit, in addition to their proof of identity and their bank statement, the letter of sponsorship, you will also need to submit a proof of address where they currently live in Europe. Okay, maybe like if they are the owner of the property, they can give you copies of their property deed. But or if it's a rental, a rental property, you can submit like their rental agreement or the contract, okay, with their landlord, as the case may be. Okay, you can also submit a copy of the residence permit of your sponsor, which shows that they are legally resident in that particular country in Europe. Okay, so the first point that we have been able to cover is the fact that another person can actually be your sponsor for a Schengen visa. And I've highlighted the kind of documents that you can provide to show that that person has sufficient funds. Point, which is, equally important, is that because Schengen visa is more or less for short stay, for visit, for tourism, and stuff like that, whoever it is that is handling your visa application, one of the questions that your application must be able to answer sufficiently is the fact that you are willing, or you are planning, or you are intending to return back to your country of residence or to your home country after your trip. Now, I mean, it's not news that, there are so many people who actually, get this short stay visa, and then they use it as a means of, continuing to live in that country illegally. Okay, so in order to convince the visa, the visa application officer or whoever is handling your application that you intend to return back to your country of residence or to your home country, you must show what they call ties to your home country. In other words, you must show them that there are things that is tying you to your home country, and you will eventually return back to your home country after your visit. Okay, so the question is that how can you show ties to your to your home country? How can you prove that you are intending to return to your to your country? Now imagine that you are not employed. Okay, so you don't have a job, which could have been like a very strong tie. You can start by showing proof of some other form of important activities that you engage in your home country. So imagine that you have some, some volunteer activities that, maybe some social activities. You can show documentation of this activity, okay, which is more or less a value that you are providing in your home country. And that can be, an intention. That can be a way of showing intention to return back to your country. Another thing is that you can show or prove your family ties. So maybe you have, aged parents, or you have a spouse, or you have, dependent children that you are taking care of. You can prove this intention to return to your country by showing the document which shows that, okay, you have a parent that, you are responsible for, or you have a spouse that you are legally married to, or you have, children, okay, that are in your home country. And because of that, eventually, of course, I mean, nobody wants to abandon their family because of a short stay visa, right? So that could be one of the ways that you show this proof, okay, of planning to actually return back to your country. You have to write a cover letter to support your visa application. All right. So most people, don't do this, but it's important because you need to write a cover letter which is compelling, and then which states exactly the purpose of your visit, exactly the ties that you have to your country, and to also connect the fact that you have the intention to return to your home country. Okay, so that is very, very important. So write a compelling cover letter. I know that there was a video that Immigrate with Ammy shared about, how to write CVs, and, some links where you can actually generate or write very good cover letter. So you might want to check out that video to support you in writing a compelling cover letter. Okay. The last thing is, of course, prepare for, your application. Now, I know that for most countries, the Schengen visa, they have, so you don't apply directly at the embassies. They have like a third party, they call them visa application centers, like VFS, for example, that handles this, Schengen visa application. And in most cases, they are not going to interview you. All they do is just, you know, gather all the documents that are going to submit, and then they forward it to the embassy. Okay. But of course, you should also be able to defend your application if need be. So maybe they ask you a question, or they look at your document and they raise, some queries. You must be alert, and you must be willing to give some form of explanation as to why you want to travel, or why you are submitting on some document, or what those documents stand for. Okay, they shouldn't ask you a question and then you don't even understand what they are saying. Okay, that does not show genuineness on your part as an applicant. So guys, I believe that we've been able to cover these 2 points. And then, the main point is that, you don't need to be employed for you to apply for the Schengen visa. Even if you are unemployed, even if you have irregular income, or even if your personal income is not sufficient, you can still successfully apply for the Schengen visa. So I hope this video is helpful to you. If you've not subscribed, please, just click on the subscribe button, click on the like button also, drop in your comments, or if you have questions that is still bothering you, maybe that we couldn't cover in this video, you can drop your comment and then we will see how we can answer that. Thank you so much for watching, and we wish you guys all the best.